Today's episode is sponsored by Zondervan. That's right. Zondervan publishers, people.
Goodness.
They're sponsoring Doctrine and Devotion.
Of course, you know why.
Because they're cool and we're cool and cool people hang out.
That's right.
We in the club.
Oh, we're finally in the club.
We in the club.
Oh, man.
Now, listen, they're sponsoring the podcast. We've got them, they're sponsoring us for the whole month. But what we really want to talk to you about this week is the NIV Biblical Theology Study Bible, General Editor D.A. Carson. You guys are going to be able to pick that up. We want you to check it out. We'll tell you more about it later. But for now, remember this. What is biblicaltheology.com?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, they should tag that on to their commercials.
No, but it's going to be part of ours.
Okay. Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast exploring Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois.
And I'm Jimmy Fowler, executive pastor at Redeemer Fellowship.
Now, somebody was saying
here we go.
that
they
don't like listening to the podcast like to listen to other podcasts, because what they like to do with other podcasts is they like to put it on like times one or double the speed or whatever, so they can get all the information in a shorter amount of time.
Okay.
And they don't like to do that with our podcast.
Well, yeah, that's of course.
No, the reason they want to do it, but they can't do it because we talk too fast.
No. I know exactly why it is.
Why?
Because a podcast like ours has to be savored.
That was
slowly
my
and
response.
sweetly.
That was my response to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was saying, no. You guys talk too fast, and he doesn't like it. Well, that's what I explained to him. Like, no. Listen, those other podcasts.
Like
listen,
this.
if we were just giving you content, if we were just nothing but content, like a commentary, then fine, you could do that. But there's a culture here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're a cultured people. This is a cultured podcast, right?
Cigar cultured.
Cigar culture. So,
bourbon cultured.
We're gonna try and slow it down. Ready?
Okay.
That's enough. All right. So now,
we're done with that.
Yeah, because that didn't work at
I
all.
didn't like that at all. So, Joe, we're at the cigar shop
Again,
because we could smoke here. We're recording. It's a good Tuesday night. Weather's starting to it's been a little hot, muggy.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Makes my beard all frizzy. I got to put this special conditioner in it, and I got to get the flat iron out, and I got to flatten it. Got to get hairspray. No, I don't do that.
I'm about to say, when's the last time you actually bought hairspray? For real. Last time you bought hairspray. What year was it?
I don't know.
And why was it 1880?
It would have been in the 80s, that's for sure. Yeah, man, when I had long hair.
When was the last time
you
you bought
in the 80s,
hairspray?
yeah.
80s.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, when did you give
Aquanet.
up? When'd you give up?
I had it long, and then I shaved it bald to go to Moody.
So wait, you're saying you went to Moody in the 90s?
92. 93.
93, okay.
I shaved it bald.
So that's when you said, oh man, I can't go with this horseshoe thing going on.
No, I wasn't balding yet. I was thick hair. I shaved it bald because Moody said I couldn't have long hair, so I shaved it bald. And then they said you can't shave it bald.
And then you said, "Oh, there's nothing I can do now."
Well, I said, "Why not? That professor right over there has a bald head." And they go, "Yeah, Dr. Sims is black. He's allowed." I was like, "Wow, what does that have to do with anything?"
Did they actually say that?
Yeah, that's exactly what they said.
Okay.
I'm like, all right,
okay.
See, that's black privilege right there.
Listen, I'm pretty sure the African Americans would rather change the privileges.
Okay, but can I at least have the bald privilege then? Can I have that?
They would happily give that to you.
We'll trade. I'm down.
If you gave all your white privilege
for a weekend though, just for a weekend. I'm not playing around with that. No way. No, I'll stay in too.
You know what?
I'm not going out.
Bible thumping wingnut's going to have a field day with us now. Here you are, social Marxism at its best.
Yeah. That's those guys. There's like a little club of haters. They're all all together. All three of them.
But they're a network.
Yes,
they are.
They have a global presence.
A global, yes.
They have a network. So, anyways, guys, we're here, and something happened this week.
Oh yeah, something happened today.
Jimmy, it was today, and Jimmy's like,
today.
"Let's talk about this on the podcast."
Yeah,
because you kind of have a man crush on Thom Rainer.
Oh yeah, dude, Thom Rainer is amazing.
He gets it done.
Not just gets it done. He's I think you've mentioned it before, and I agree with you. He's the elder statesman of the SBC.
I think I said he's the grandpa. I think I said he's the grandpa. He's the Gramps.
No, I'm going to go elder statesman.
But I said Gramps.
Elder statesman.
We love you, Gramps.
Yep. Happy retirement, Gramps.
Grandpa Tom. No, man. So Thom Rainer was the president of
Lifeway.
Yep. That's a huge responsibility. I was actually there when he got the job. I was
Oh, you voted him in?
No. They brought me in. They brought in some bloggers to kind of talk about it and like take notes and live blog it. So they brought him in, and that's when he became the president. I was there with Tim Brister. I think Tim Brister, and these other guys were all there. And I started asking him questions about Calvinism. He didn't appreciate it.
Oh, he's like, why are you harpooning me?
He's like, will you just leave me alone, dude? I'm just trying to like put out good
I'm
material.
trying to win this election.
Yeah. Well, he was appointed. I think he was appointed or something. But anyways, Tom's been at it for a long time. And now, if you don't know Tom, most of you do. If you don't know Tom specializes in helping churches, helping churches get healthy,
revitalize
to function biblically. And you can check him out on ThomRainer.com.
We should probably hire him for Revitalites.
Oh, I don't need any help. That's my thing.
No. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're filled up. Now we need to bring him in and offer.
You get to ride my coattails like you do?
Oh, no.
There's no room, Tom.
No, there's room. Tom's about to surpass you.
No, on my coattails.
Oh, no. He got to jump over you.
No, stop. It's easy, though.
Are you telling me if people had the choice between Thom Rainer and you, that they'd go for you?
It depends on what the choice is all about.
The choice is about success and efficiency.
Well, yeah, that definitely got to be Tom. If you're talking about tattoo culture or cigars, they're going to choose me.
So
what happened with Tom?
Okay, so
he quit like a quitter.
No, he did not. He stepped down. He
must have been a scandal.
No
Must have been something
scandal,
bad, really
no
bad
issues,
nope.
nothing at all. He will help with the transition. He'll stick around for whenever the new person's appointed, help them get set, or a year, whichever comes first, kind of a thing. But no, I mean, he listed all these reasons. And
one was like he's an old head. He's like 60 something.
He did say he's getting up there in years, but that wasn't. I don't think that was the.
It was one of them.
But I mean, he talked about hey, new leadership.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. He's saying listen, Lifeway has grown and it's grown great, and it's going to take new leadership to take it to the next level.
Right.
So he's very forward thinking in that
think
regard.
about this. Under his watch, we got the Gospel Project.
Yeah.
Like that's the greatest thing to come out of Lifeway ever.
Oh yeah.
For real.
No.
Like it really is
amazing.
And
we gave it to Aaron to watch over.
Yeah.
Don't mess it up.
So here's the thing. For a guy that headed the institution when they were making the biggest strides ever, he still says, like, you know what? That doesn't mean that I'm the man
That's
forever.
right.
I'm here for a time. He also said things like, I want to spend more time in these years, probably his twilight years. I want to spend more time with my family.
He wants to be with his wife, foremost, his sons and their wives, and I think he said 8 grandchildren.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I mean, that all makes sense. All these things. He's like, I want more free time to spend time with them. Everything he listed was good.
And he said, I also want to continue to help local churches go through revitalization.
Correct.
Spend more time on that.
And, I mean, if you looked at the footnote, he also said he's hoping that we'll give him a job. And I'm not sure, Tom. If
there's an internship, Tom.
Yeah, there's an internship. You could start there, and we'll see where it goes. But maybe, Tom, maybe.
So why did you want us to do an episode on this?
Because finally, someone left well and wasn't forced out. Like someone didn't leave because of a scandal.
They didn't burn it down. Yep.
Didn't get forced out. It was like everything you hope for as a pastor. I think as a pastor, or even as as an employee, that when you transition or when you move on, like you leave well.
You don't want to. Yeah,
that was it, man. I saw that. I'm like, finally, the elder statesman had to show us how it's done.
Yeah, man. Gramps knows best.
Gramps knows best.
He
didn't Patterson this thing. Oh, was that good?
Yeah, that's good.
Come on,
I like that. I'll pound that.
Good.
So listen. So Tom is a great guy. Everybody that I know who knows Tom loves Tom.
Yeah.
And
the one person you know is Jordan Howe, and that's the only.
No, I know a lot of people.
Yeah,
I know a lot of the people that work there.
Who? Yeah, exactly. So continue. He's elder statesman.
So in light of people that have been leaving ministry in shame or anger or jealousy or whatever, you were like, hey, why don't we do an episode on how we should leave well?
Yeah.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about. We're just riffing here, right? We're just going to talk from our perspective and our experience, and then we are going to read an article by Mark Dever. But we want to talk about how we should leave a ministry position well.
Yeah.
But then also, how should you leave a job, like your vocation? Maybe it's a secular job. How do you leave that well?
Yeah.
And then we want to talk about how do you leave a church well? Because sometimes people got to transition out of a church, and that is frequently done very poorly.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. So let's talk about this.
All right. So what about this? Well, if you're going to leave a ministry position, how to do it poorly seems pretty obvious. How do you do it well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking at Tom, I mean, I think one, leave when things are going well, right? I think
that's really good.
Leave on the upside. It's easy to leave when things are going down. It's easy to leave when numbers start to dwindle. It's easy to leave in the midst of conflict, right? It's easy to leave, and part of me gets frustrated when I see young guys or old guys or anybody, any pastor that leaves a ministry position when the ship is sinking. And essentially, you've just said, I'm abandoning, figure this out yourself.
Yeah.
Right? That's not, how could you shepherd a group of people for so long, I'm hoping, right, that you've shepherded them for some time, supposed to supposedly love them, care for them, want to see their well-being, and then at their moment of need for direction and clarity and shepherding, you say, bye, Felicia.
Yeah.
Right? That to me is, I'm dumbfounded by that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it demonstrates a lack of care,
Yeah.
a lack of love for the people that you're with. I think another thing.
Hey, hold on, I want to just
Okay, no, but please, Jimmy, please keep talking.
No, I'm going to keep talking about this because I think the flip side of that though is maybe you're burnt out or maybe you've been abused at the church, right? That's not what I'm talking about here, right? If you're burnt and if you're needing help counseling wise, if you have been abused, I'm sure there's going to be others that are counseling you saying, listen, maybe you do need to take a step back for the health of, for your own health, for the health of your family. Right. And that's not what I'm talking about here.
And even then, you're still gonna transition out well.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's something that I would say is like if you're gonna leave a ministry position, make sure that you are helping with the transition as much as you can.
Yeah.
You know, you to cut and run quickly doesn't only demonstrate a lack of care for people, but it's going to create a lot of problems.
Yeah.
You know, whether that is a gradual kind of moving away from it, or whether it's a timeline that you've established. I'm going to be here, like Thom Rainer did. Like, as soon as you got somebody, I'm going to help with that transition. But in a year, I'm going to be gone because I can't do this forever. So I think transitioning, like helping with the transition, is a really important thing.
I think being transparent
for
why you're
the
leaving,
same
right?
thing.
Yeah, see, we're on the same
Tell the
page.
truth.
Tell the truth.
Don't
Tell
lie.
why you're leaving, right? If you're struggling with something, if there is some unresolved issues, talk about it, right? Talk about it. If you've got some concerns with the leadership structure, if you've got some concerns with the elders themselves, deal with that because you're only helping them get better for the next guy. You're setting the next pastor or the next person up for success, right? And I think Joe and I, we've talked about that just on a personal level.
Oh, yeah.
When we talk about processes and procedures.
Right.
Oftentimes when we talk about stuff and Joe will say, well, I don't need that, or this isn't important now. And he's right. Because, as a church, we are very healthy. But what about that one point where Joe's no longer there and there is an issue? We got to prepare for any other strife that might come up.
Right. And I think, in most cases, when you're leaving a ministry position, you want to celebrate what God has done. You want to be able to say, look at the things that God has done and how he used all of us together to accomplish these great things.
That's right.
To celebrate that shows the people that, like, you're not leaving because nothing's happening. God's calling you out from this ministry into something else, perhaps, but he's doing so after he had accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish through you with that team. So I think celebrating what has been accomplished is really good. That affirms the people, and it helps them to see that this was not all for nothing.
No.
Some people are there for a short period of time. Some people are there for a long period of time. But that is going to help with I think with the transition itself, it'll help with that if you're celebrating.
I think for all these, I'm just going to give one now that I think applies to all three of them. And I think it's not to be done rashly. It's not to be done quickly. I think
because you're mad.
Because you're mad, exactly. I think that if you're thinking these things through, you should be prayerfully considering them, and it shouldn't be a weak decision. It should take you longer than a month or 2 months to decide whether it's the time for me to go. Right, so. You need to be patient when making this decision because something might be up. And so in the midst of that, I think the transparency part, if you're already sensing something, share that right away because maybe it'll get resolved and then, okay, we all move forward rather than blindsiding people at the end.
That's really good. I like that you said that, take time and pray, because I think a part of that would also be get some counsel and talk to people about it, because I've talked about it before, but there was a time when I was having this like mental health crisis and I was burned out. and I was, afflicted with a lot of anxiety, and it got so bad. I thought, like, I better leave the church. Like, not the church, but I better leave my position as lead pastor, not because there was a scandal or any sin problem, but because I was afraid that I was going to mess everything up. And I remember talking to different people about it, and everyone told me, don't do that.
Yeah.
You've got to deal with this issue, but that is not the answer. My wife actually told me on the phone. I called her kind of in like one of those anxious moments, and I asked her, I said, like, what if I resigned? Would you follow me? And I already know that she's going to say yes. She said, Joe, I'll follow you anywhere. But it's not God that wants you out of that church. It's the devil that wants you out of that church. None of the people want you out of that church. So you shouldn't be thinking that way. Instead, you got to figure out what the problem is. So I think what you said, Jimmy, is really good. Pray, be patient, and I just want to tag on, get counsel, talk to people about what you're thinking and what you're going through, whether it's a hardship or whether it's restlessness or whatever it is. Talk to people. Talk to people who have insight that you aren't going to have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But what about people that aren't in ministry, right? Which is most of the Christians out there. They're not in a vocational ministry position. They have jobs. They have vocations. That they're garbage men. They're lawyers. They're nurses. They're doctors. They're teachers. They're artists. What about them? Like, they're gonna transition out of their job at some point, probably, maybe a few times. And especially how I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Especially young people have a tendency to quit and run pretty quick.
Oh yeah,
right. Like they're out. They got a better opportunity, and they're going to split.
Yeah.
How should they leave a job? Because you run a big company.
Yeah.
How would you like your employees to leave that job, and why is it important, especially for Christians, to do so?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would hope that for a lot of things we talked about with the ministry position, I would hope that there'd be transparency.
Yeah.
I think that if there's any grievances, that they would share that, so I can try to make it work. If they do have a better offer, I'd like to be able to try to match it or exceed it, because especially if they're really good employees, I want to keep them, right? So I want to be able to have that opportunity. I think also in this, I think give your notice, right?
How much notice?
I think 2 weeks is
2 weeks. So
is
that's
good.
pretty standard, right?
That's pretty standard.
That's still
2 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, you could do 1 week, but 2 weeks is good. I appreciate that. And even when I'm hiring people, and I'll ask, okay, well, when do you want to start? It's kind of my test. If they tell me I'll start Monday, I go, all right. Because if you're going to cut and run from your current place that fast, you're going to do the same to me.
Like, do you not have a job right now?
Yeah.
Or do you have a job and you
have
just
a job and you just don't care? That's it. So I mean, I'm hoping that they'll say, well, I'd like to give them notice. I'd like to give them a week, at least a week, maybe 2 weeks. And I'm like, I respect that. I'll wait for you on that.
Why is it important to leave your secular job well as a Christian?
Well, because I think hopefully, I mean, that people know that you are a believer, that you love the Lord, and so I think it's a witness. It's a witness to the glory of God. And let's just say they don't know. Let's say they don't know. You're still a witness in that community, in that vocation of God's care and God's influence in your own personal life, right? And so I think ultimately it comes down to you're a witness to the glory of God, to what God has done in you. And so leaving well is really important. If you're cutting and running, if you're leaving and not being transparent, if you're grumbling and you're angry, I mean, this all reflects the Lord that you serve.
Right. And I think, not only should we say this is like, be careful how you leave because of the witness. That's really important, right? Because you represent Christ. You're an ambassador for Christ at your vocation. But also because that your vocation is something God has called you to. And now maybe he's only called you to that for a time.
Exactly.
But he has called you to that. And, it says in Colossians chapter 3, verse 23, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. So whatever you do in your work, you're working for Jesus.
That's right.
Above working for your boss.
That's right.
And so, and you say, well, I'm not working, I'm quitting. Okay, but that's the last thing that you'll do in your employment. And so even you have to honor the Lord in your quitting, in your leaving, because it all reflects on him, and it either will honor or dishonor him. And then, like you said, Jimmy, it's going to reflect to a lot of other people something about you. Like, wow, you know what? They were here. They were all in. They were hardworking, but they cut and run as soon as they had the chance. So they're phony.
Yeah.
They're fake. They're not real. And that's what Christians are like. I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. And so along with, we talked about it with the ministry position about, Thom Rainer transitioning well. It's the same thing here. If you've given your 2 weeks notice, work hard for those 2 weeks. Don't don't act like it's senior year, last 2 weeks, and you got senioritis and you don't care anymore. No, come in on time, still be well groomed and respectable, and work hard, right, and make sure that you're setting up. You're setting up the next guy or girl, and you're transitioning some of those tasks that maybe you're doing that the next person's not going to.
Yeah.
So that you're setting up your coworkers for success.
You want them to walk into your work area and go, "Wow, this thing is set up. It's ready to go." Like they didn't leave it like a pit.
Exactly.
Just because you're leaving, it's a pretty selfish move, but it's really common. I think that's kind of our natural sort of default. Look, it doesn't matter. I'm leaving.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm not getting. And here's the thing: you are getting paid. I was going to say, you are getting paid. You're getting paid for that last 2 weeks.
You're getting paid to leave that job in order.
Exactly. So, leave it well in that regard. So, Joe, before we start talking about the church, though, right? I mean, one of the things we want to leave with people here, we want to leave well in letting you know.
You're struggling with the transition.
I am sure struggling. Well, I should have went transition. I should have said, speaking of transitions.
Let's transition to
how about that
our
NIV
sponsor.
NIV
Look, guys,
Biblical Theology Study Bible.
Look, we love the Bible, and we love Bible resources, and we are really excited about Zondervan's NIV Biblical Theology Study Bible. It's going to unpack God's redemptive plan as it unfolds throughout all of Scripture. So, basically what you're looking at here is D.A. Carson and a team of 65 scholars that have contributed to over 20,000 study notes, and there's 28 new articles on biblical theology that are going to help you see all of Scripture, how it works together, and each of those major themes are taking shape through progressive revelation. This is a good resource for you, especially if you're new to biblical theology. It's a great place to start.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, one of the contributors is Dr. James Hamilton, who is preaching at the 2019 Doctrine and Devotion Conference on Biblical Theology.
My goodness, it's going to be so good.
They can register for that. But this is Zondervan's time.
This is Zondervan's time. Don't talk about drdevotion.com/conference.
No, that would be, we want to step on Zondervan's toes.
Exactly.
So instead, right now, go to whatisbiblicaltheology.com. If you go there, you can actually read 3 of those 28 articles in the Biblical Theology Study Bible. Check it out for free, and then go buy that sucker. It's going to be good.
It's going to be great. Go order it now. So, Joe, we've talked about ministry. We've talked about your job or your vocation.
Right.
What about leaving a church? Because
that happens all the time.
Oh, and I know I've done it myself, right? So that's why it's frustrating for me as I look back on in my youth when I've left a church where you just stop showing up, or I've just stopped showing up, right? No communication, no rhyme or reason, just poof. Just gone.
I did that. I was going to a church. This is the church that I came to Christ in, right? Or I came to Christ and then started going to that church. And those Christians loved me unconditionally. They were supportive and they were encouraging. They were kind. And the longer I was there, the more I kept running into some theological differences. I was becoming more reformed, and they were not a reformed church, and so I was noticing this, and there wasn't any antagonism or anything, but it was a little weird. And eventually, after I had seen the differences, I finally said, you know what, I'm going to start going to a different church. Now, I was a member at this church.
Yeah,
I'd become a member, and then I shortly after that started going somewhere else. And about 3 weeks later, I get a call from one of the pastors, and he's like, "Hey, Joe. Man, we were praying for you, and we just noticed that you haven't been around, and we just wanted to check in and see how things are going." And I was like, "Oh, hey, Pastor, sorry, man. Yeah, I'm going to a different church. I'm checking out some things. I'm looking at this church." And he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "What church are you looking at?" And I went, "Oh, it's this other church over here." I told him what it was. And he goes, okay, that makes sense. I understand that. He said, "Listen, you think we could meet up for coffee real quick? Just want to chat with you a little bit about it." And I said, "Sure." So we met. And the short of it is, he said, "Look," I explained why we were leaving, and he goes, "Look, we know you. We love you. And we know that you're passionate about theology, and so you say you want to go to a different church because you have theological differences. We understand that, and we will send you. We love you. But you left. You abandoned us. You didn't say a word, man. It's like you didn't care. He called me out hard. Now, he was nice about it, but it was
praise
hard.
God
I was
for
so
that.
convicted. I was like, oh my gosh, I blew it big time. It's not how you leave a church.
No.
It's not how you leave a church. So
That's often how people do.
yeah, I'm gonna go. It's like anything else. Well, I'm not gonna shop there anymore.
Yeah.
It's like I don't like that place.
Yeah.
Like I got certain restaurants are on my list. They're on my list. I got a long list of places.
Name one restaurant on your list.
I have to think about it because it's not like I don't go to those places anymore. But I would say, El Puente. I don't go there. On my list.
On your list?
El Puente.
Now, do you stop going to... Are some of those restaurants on your list because they do square cut pizza instead of pie cut?
No. Well, I'll say this. If they won't do pie cut, they're on the list. Yeah. They got to do pie cut. So that's not how you want to leave. If you want to leave, there are some things to do. Actually, there's an article that Mark Dever wrote. Actually, it's from his book, What is a Healthy Church? It's the first time I read this. So I read What is a Healthy Church when it came out. And on page 57 of that book, he says, here's what you need to do before you leave a church.
Yeah.
And so we're going to link to that in the show notes. You can read it online. So he says, before you decide to leave, here are 6 things that you should do. Number 1, he says, pray.
Oh, yeah.
That's
very important.
He shouldn't have to say that.
But we do. We do need to say it.
Yeah, we need to hear it. I need to hear it. You pray about it. Like, so why are you leaving? What's your desire? Where's your heart? What are your needs? Talk to the Lord about it, right? He gives wisdom to those who ask. So that sounds like a pretty basic thing, but it's so basic we tend to forget it and we don't do it. We think we know best and we're just going to go do our thing. So that's the first thing, pray.
Number 2, let your current pastor know about your thinking before you move to another church or make your decision to relocate to another city. Ask for his counsel, right? So
he's your pastor.
Exactly. So even the stuff that you're talking about there, right? The things you're talking about your pastor coming to you and saying, "Hey, man, you just abandoned us," right? Like you should be able to talk to your pastor. If you're willing to leave, then be bold enough to talk directly to the individual and say why, what's going on, what you're thinking.
Yeah, have conviction, have courage. Like you're so convicted you're going to leave the church, but you don't have enough conviction to actually talk to your leaders.
Mm-hmm. To stand up in front of them and let them know face to face.
Yeah, that's called being a coward. It's called being a big baby head.
Yep. Yeah, it's called being a Joe.
No, well, I did it.
That's what you did. Yeah.
I totally did that.
It's called being a Joe.
I totally. Well, not anymore though.
Yeah, go continue, Joey.
Being an old Joe.
Being a young Joe.
Dang it. Number 3, Mark Dever says, weigh your motives. Is your desire to leave because of sinful, personal conflict, or disappointment? If it's because of doctrinal issues, are these doctrinal issues significant? Man, I know people that leave churches because of one weird doctrine. They will get all crazy about it and then just take off because of one thing. I think this is really good. Like, where's your heart? Why do you want to go?
Yeah. And I think what's really important is this doctrinal reason. Is that significant? Right?
So, like, okay, Reformed guys, sometimes, like, you'll find a church who maybe doesn't believe that it is a violation of the second commandment to have depictions of Jesus in their literature. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna go out. All right, so maybe that is significant enough for you. Ultimately, it's going to come down to your conscience and everything. But maybe it's not. Maybe you're a little uptight. Are you really looking for the perfect church? You're going to find a church where you agree with them on every single possible thing that they believe or do? Not going to happen. Absolutely is not going to happen. So you really got to weigh your motives here. I love that Dever says this because this is especially true for those of us in the Reformed community.
Number 4. Do everything within your power to reconcile any broken relationships. This is really important.
It's biblical.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, make sure before you go that you squared away everything, that you've forgiven those that may have hurt you, that you've sought forgiveness for those that you've hurt. Don't just cut and run when relationships become hard.
Yeah, I mean that's just so easy. It's what we do, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna block that person. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna unfriend them. Like this got weird, and you can't do that.
Oh
in the
man,
real
I know
world.
one person that's like unfriended me twice.
But I friended you back. There's always a third.
Actually, you did do that before, but you're not the one. Yes, you did. You're like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh man. I'm like,
oh,
I'm
so on Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter. I'm like, oh dude, look, I finally got 100 followers. You're like, and then all of a sudden it's like, 99. I'm like, what? What just happened? It was Joe.
That's me. That's a Joe move right there. Yeah, I think that's really good. It's a biblical thing, obviously. Number 5, Deborah says, be sure to consider all the evidences of grace that you've seen in the church's life. Places where God's work is evident. If you cannot see any evidences of God's grace, you might want to examine your own heart once more. In other words,
there's got to be some good that's going on there, right?
Stop being a hater. Listen, just because you have a problem with the church in a particular locale doesn't mean that God is not at work, that God isn't using them. If you've become a hater, then you are definitely the problem more than the church is.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's a really good thing. Like, look carefully. How is God at work there? You should be able to talk about it so that when you do leave, you can give an honest answer and say, you know what, I left because they don't really preach expository sermons, and that's really what I think is important for maybe that's what your conviction is. But you know what? I do see people changing. I do see lives being changed. I do see people coming to know Jesus. And so you got to be able to say that there are good things happening there too.
Yeah, number 6, be humble, right? And so making sure that you understand that you don't have all the facts and you don't have all the access, you don't have all the facts and to accept, like you can't, I think sometimes often, especially younger Reformed guys, and I'm talking about people like me, right? Yeah. Can be so bullheaded in thinking that I know every situation perfectly and I know how they did it wrong and what they should have done right. And because they didn't do it the way I wanted to do it, to assess the situation, I am just going to cut and run.
This is how a lot of church plants start and then fail.
Yeah.
Homeboys like, this church can't do it right. I'm going to go do it right. We're going to finally start a church where they're doing it right. Everybody's doing it wrong, especially this one.
We're going back to the first century.
We're going to go.
I always hate that. You really going to go back to first century?
Really?
You're really going back to first century?
Hey, you know what? I'm going to go to the 22nd century. I'm going forward. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, that's why we A29.
That's right. We invent chapters in the Bible. Man, it's like your church is going to fail. And listen, I've watched them. I have watched them over and over again up close. I've seen them where they we're going to go out, we're going to start this church because our church isn't doing it right. Then they go out and it doesn't work. So be humble. I think that's a really good word. Now, Dever continues and he says, and listen, if you are going to go, if you ultimately decide that you do need to leave, he has 3 pieces of advice. Number 1, do not divide the body.
That's right.
So, hey, church planter, don't do that. Don't hey, man, you see how crummy this guy preaches? You see how he uses the message, and we're not down with that. And he's not a 5-point Calvinist. He's only a 4-point Calvinist.
Oh, and man, he no longer has Sunday school.
He ditched Sunday school.
We're going to get back to Sunday school.
We're going back to first century.
First century.
When they didn't have Sunday school.
Yeah. Well, wait.
It's like, look, man, you've got to be careful.
I'm going back to house church. We're a house church. We're gonna really focus on relationships at our church.
Well, you know what? We're not gonna plan anymore. It's just gonna be organic.
Oh,
I love that.
I hate that.
I love
one.
Organic.
Oh,
because it's a euphemism for unplanned. It's just no strategy.
It's just another word to say lazy. It really is. It's like I don't understand it. I understand the sense of organic relationships. Like people are going to start.
They're natural. They're real.
I know, but even then though, they're intentional. That's why you join a CG or a DG. Is in that group, you're hoping to intentionally build a relationship and closely.
Look,
you go to your house church organically and let it become organic when it fails and crumbles to the ground.
Here's an organic thing. Yeah, if you're gonna plant a little seedling in your yard, you want to plant a little tree. You know what you got to do? You got to put a little stick next to it, and you got to put a little thread around it. It holds that up straight so that it can grow organically, but it needs a little bit of structure around it.
You got to water it. Huh? There's some some
nitrates,
right? Some sulfates,
some Miracle Grow. I don't know. I don't know. I don't grow anything.
I really don't know if sulfates was the right word.
I think that's in turkey. No, hot dogs.
Hot dogs have sulfate?
Yeah.
So can I just cut up hot dogs and put them out there?
I think it'll work.
Would it grow a hot dog tree?
I don't know. I've never tried it.
Well, let's try it.
Hashtag hot dog tree.
Hot dog tree.
All right. What about number 2? If you're going to go.
Yeah. Take the utmost care not to sow discontent even among your closest friends. So if you're leaving, don't try to assemble your crew with you.
Don't badmouth everybody on your way out.
I know you're trying to, hey, church planter, you know who I'm talking to. I know you're trying to build your core team, but don't do it by sowing discontent among your friends.
They may not have a problem that you have.
Exactly. You're going to try and poison them. They might not see that same thing, and here you are just, like you said, poison. It's just sowing discord. It's nuts to me.
And so he goes on to say, deny any desire to gossip. Sometimes referred to as venting or saying how you feel or keeping it real.
Yeah. Can you pray for me as I'm working through these struggles. I love that one.
I'm really struggling with how sucky the preaching is here. Could you pray for me?
Could you pray for me? And my heart in this is like, oh, I never realized the
preaching was so bad.
Maybe let me think about it and start critiquing it.
Can you pray for me, because I'm struggling with the pastor's bad habits and his bad attitude and his bad character. I'm struggling with that.
Really struggling with how the pastor I don't have access to the pastor as close as I want to.
I feel like I'm struggling with that fact that I don't think he loves me, but he doesn't actually love me. So could you pray with me?
Can you pray with me? It's just so weird. Good. Like, I just don't get it. Oh, no, you know what? I do get it. That's the problem. I do get it because I've been there.
Right. But now you've evolved.
Oh, I'm so much better than you. So much better than you.
And that's a plural you. He's saying all.
That's all of you. Yes. Not just Joe. I'm talking about all y'all. All right, Joe, number 3.
Pray for and bless the congregation and its leadership. Look for ways of doing this practically. And if there has been hurt, then forgive, even as you forgive. Or have been forgiven. Listen, obviously there are going to be those rare exceptions when a church is toxic and the leadership is poison and you've got to go nuclear. You've got to call everybody out. You've tried everything that you can do.
I did that once.
How'd it go? Did you Kim Jong-un that thing?
Actually, I feel like I went more in there like Trump.
You were Trump, yeah.
I was more Trumpian.
Yeah. So it was, listen, there are exceptions when a church is truly toxic and poisonous. It's not a church, it's a synagogue of Satan. It's a cathedral of corruption. Okay. Fine. Okay. Most of the time,
no.
You're just leaving a church that's not perfect.
That's right.
So try and bless people on the way out. Be cool. Be chill.
Yeah. And be chill with us. I already know there's a handful of you that hate what we just said because we're talking about you.
Yeah. You know who you are.
We know who you are.
Jared Wilson.
Okay.
He would never do that. He would never do that.
Never do
He's way
that.
too nice.
Maybe though.
Well, it's the seed is in there. It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, Jared. I am praying for you. I received your text.
I need you to pray for me because Jimmy, would you pray for me? Because I'm struggling with Jared's terrible attitude toward me online, and I just feel like it's hard for me to handle how disrespectful he is. And,
are you talking about that one GIF? Or that one meme that he put?
No, I'm just making stuff up. So I can
no. You're talking about on Twitter where he made that.
Oh, what did he say? He said our podcast has bad form.
That's it.
Yeah. There you go. Perfect example.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling with Jared's meanness. So could you pray for me? See how I did that?
Yeah, I see how you did that.
I'm calling out Jared by asking you to pray for me.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing to do.
No.
You don't find that kind of advice in the Biblical Theology Study Bible from Zondervan, though. You only find good stuff in there.
That's right. Where do they go for that, Joe?
Well, it's a pretty easy URL. You just go to whatisbiblicaltheology.com.
Bam.
You can't forget that, right? Whatisbiblicaltheology.com. Go there, check it out, and then get on that thing. It's going to be really good. We're grateful. We're honored that Zondervan is sponsoring the podcast and the conference that's coming up next year, May 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, May 3rd and 4th.
March.
DrDevotion.com/conference. We've only got a limited number of early bird seats available, so make sure you register, sign up now. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Doc and Devo, or on Facebook /DrDevotion. You can head to the website, DrDevotion.com. There you can contact us. You can sign up for the email blast or hit up the store, JoeFoStore.com, and grab some gear. Fresh pod every Monday and Thursday, blog posts on Wednesdays, video content on Fridays. Later.